Home sweet home, baby. The Gophers are winning the portal in April, and we're diving into it because Jaxon Howard is back.
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And today, we've got a lot of portal talk for you, covering across not only football, but men's and women's basketball, new additions, new players to keep in mind, so much going on. But the biggest news is Jaxon Howard coming back home. The number one recruit in the state of Minnesota in 2023 is coming back home. Cue up the music. Guess who's back again? It's Jaxon. We're going to make it happen, and it's going to be a good time for the Gophers. It's a great time to be a Gopher fan. So we're going to dive into what all of that means. Then we're going to move on to Gophers men's basketball, talk about a couple names the Gophers have shown interest in lately, and finally, another person coming back home for the Gophers women's basketball team in Taylor Woodson. So if you want to learn more about the Gophers from the portal, then definitely sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube so you don't miss any future Gophers content moving forward, and hit that like button so others can find the show. If you're on an audio platform, leave a 5-star review so others can find us as well. We're building up this Gophers community, but I love talking Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week. Now let's talk about Jaxon Howard. Like I said, he's coming back to the 612. The love that this fan base has for Jaxon Howard was definitely felt. You could see it all across the social media feeds. You could see every Gopher fan wanting him to return home, and thus it ended up happening. Now, he transfers from LSU. Last year was his freshman year. He ended up redshirting, but he was the number one prospect in the state of Minnesota in 2023, and he was down to LSU, Michigan, Miami, and Minnesota. Now, those are some big programs, especially LSU and Michigan. Michigan, who ended up winning the national championship last year, but he goes to LSU, ends up redshirting, has a big spring game. He had a very big spring game as an early enrollee freshman. I believe he had 4 or 5 tackles and a sack. Definitely had some high potential flashes in that spring game. Didn't get another opportunity until the bowl game, where he did log a couple tackles officially in the box score. But overall, he didn't get a whole lot of run, and that ended up leading to potentially wanting to transfer to get an opportunity to get on the field sooner rather than later. Now, this is going to be big time for the Gophers because he brings a great athleticism, a great presence, and a great upside to this defensive end room. Now, we already have some nice talents in this room, so it really just bolsters, hopefully, this Gophers edge rushers getting after the passer, getting home on sacks, and creating chaos in the Big Ten. That is definitely needed in this bigger conference with 18 teams. Now, Jaxon Howard played both tight end and defensive end in high school. A lot of people were like, well, is he going to play tight end? Is he going to play D end? He's for sure going to play D end. I know Winston DeLatibadier was a big factor. Definitely a good relationship building there, but Coach Winston has been great in building that relationship with all the players across the defense, but especially in that D-line room. I have to imagine it was a major factor in this one, but the factor to be able to get on the field immediately and contribute in some manner, and then potentially be one of the faces of this room, but even as early as 2025. That could be right what Jaxon Howard is walking into and helping tee himself up for opportunities to get to the ultimate goal of playing in the NFL. Now, like I just said, edge player for Minnesota. That edge room just got some nasty upside with this addition. And now a potential core four of Ja Joyner, Danny Strigow, Anthony Smith, and Jaxon Howard. Quarterbacks aren't going to have any sort of breather with that type of rotation coming off of the edge. And then you've got Devin Eastern in the interior. If the Gophers can find another player to pair on the inside with Devin Eastern that has that higher upside, this defensive line could get scary for opposing teams in the Big Ten. Now, I imagine that Danny Strigow is going to start in that role, but I think Jaxon Howard rotates in, and that was something this Gophers team didn't have, was depth behind Danny Strigow. This is Danny Strigow's last year of eligibility, so as he kind of leads the charge in that room, he can help get Jaxon Howard quickly immersed into the culture, into the defensive scheme, into everything that comes along with that transfer to help ease him into the transition, but also to then tee him up to be the starter of that position for the next year after and the year after that. He's got 4 years of eligibility, but I would imagine he's at least here for the next 2 years, maybe 3, depending on how things play out. But I think overall that gives you awesome depth on that side. And then you've got Ja Joyner, who's starting on the opposite side, and Anthony Smith rotating in. So then in 2025, you likely have Jaxon Howard and Anthony Smith step into those starting roles, because Strigow, like I said, will be out of eligibility, and Ja will likely be headed to the NFL. Now, Jaxon Howard was ranked a 4-star high school prospect and a 4-star transfer prospect on 247 as well. So expect him to play early with Minnesota, as I know that was a big factor for finding the best opportunity for him to be able to help get himself to his NFL dream. So that's what they were looking for when looking for his next school. His next stop was looking for that opportunity, and the opportunity is going to come knocking here in Minnesota. Cannot wait to see that. Now, this is a guy who initially had offers from Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, LSU, and on and on and on. 60 offers as a high school prospect. You know the upside was greatly recognized when you see those type of offers, and the NFL type upside is there, and he can be a difference maker for the next 2 to 3 years or more. Like I said, still has 4 years of eligibility. This is an awesome addition for the Gophers defense, and it filled a portal need, as we mentioned recently on the show. Now, Minnesota will still need to add some depth at the quarterback position and on the interior defensive line, but if they can get that going, then I think anything else is just bonus after that, in my opinion. So this Gophers team is starting to sit in a nice spot as things still gel together, as they still build that identity, as they still work through the chemistry in that process and getting up to full game speed. We're only in April. There's a lot of time left, but this team could definitely catch people sleeping. And I am excited for the upside that comes along with Jaxon Howard, with this defense, with a new defensive coordinator, with the violence, the aggression, the just grittiness that this defensive coordinator wants to play with. And everything is done with speed. Everything is making the adjustments to wipe away complexities, but get things going instinctively and faster and creating chaos. And we're seeing it in the spring sessions. Now you add another playmaker like Jaxon Howard, and it only can go up. So definitely be excited for you and others. It's going to be a good time to be a Gopher fan this upcoming year. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my gut, and I am excited. Now, the portal is going crazy for the Gophers here in this month of April. We had Frank Mitchell, who committed to the Gophers this week. We talked about that on the show. Now we're talking about Jaxon Howard, but I want to talk about a couple other names to consider on the men's basketball side of things. That's what's coming up next. 3 names who they're supposedly after. We're diving into that next. First, let's talk about something that we all know. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime. The scoreboard isn't looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out the win. And then that's when you dig deep. That's when you lift your head up and you say to yourself, time to get back in the game. And then you pull off some heists and take as much of your friend's money as you possibly can. That's right, with the smash hit mobile game, Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, or charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends and crack open community chests and tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So go back out there, put on your game face, download Monopoly Go now on the free App Store or on Google Play. And now, while we're talking about it, we definitely got to give a shout out to our friends over at eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience, that's what brings home the winning championships. It's the winning formula, and it's also what helps keep your vehicle alive. And eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts in every category imaginable. They're number one for your ride or die, and you'll always find exactly what you are looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. And you can get everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. It doesn't matter if you're into power, speed, style, they've got you covered over at eBay Motors and turning your car into the MVP. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, and the eBay Guaranteed Fit is for U.S. customers only. All right, Gophers fans, let's talk about men's basketball. Shifting gears, still talking portal talk. Everything today is about that transfer portal, and there are 3 more names that the Gophers have shown interest in, and they all could be maybe slightly realistic. One of them is getting a lot of big looks from big schools, but we'll see if the Gophers can be in the mix. Now, the first one I want to bring up is Seydou Traore. He is from Manhattan, or the school of Manhattan is where he played. He was a freshman last year, true freshman, and he averaged 11.8 points per game, 8.2 rebounds per game, and 2.3 assists per game. Now, he is more of a wing player, maybe that 3 or traditional 4, but he shot 43% from the field, so a decent field goal percentage, but not a consistent three-point shooter. He has the ability to shoot the three-point ball, but it wasn't always consistently falling. He only shot 25.6%, but he did have a number of threes that dropped for him, whether it was a step back or open looks. So he has the ability, but he has to get better or more consistent on that front. Now, he's a 6'7" athletic player, probably better suited to play the 4 position in my opinion, but he could play the 3 at times too. Now, he has good passing vision. He had a 15% assist rate last year and a 4% block rate, averaged 1.3 blocks per game. Really good in transition, but he is not a pull-up jump shooter or off the dribble jump shooter. He creates in transition, he attacks the cup, or he is a good spot up shooter. But if you ask him to pull up or create off the dribble, it didn't go too well for him. Now, he played some big teams last year, even though he was playing for Manhattan. He played Kansas in the second game of the year, where he had 16 points and 8 rebounds against one of the best teams usually in the country year after year. He also played who ended up being the champions in the NCAA for back-to-back seasons. He played UConn last year. He had 13 points and 8 rebounds. And then he also had 6 double-doubles on the year. So Seydou Traore, he's probably my favorite of these 3 to help the Gophers. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But the second name I want to bring up is Ken Evans. He comes from Jackson State. Now, he is the reigning SWAC player of the year last year, 18.8 points per game, 5.4 rebounds per game, 2.9 assists per game. And he has 1 year of eligibility left, I believe. Now, he's a wing player, but he can play that 2 guard, more of a 2 or a 3. I think he'd probably play the 2 with the Gophers if he came here. But the thing you love to see is he shot nearly 40% from 3 last year. He was 39.2% from the 3-point line. Now, he had a 1-to-1 turnover to assist ratio, with it being 2.9 to 2.9. That's kind of bad on the turnovers front, but it's decent on the assist front for a more of a shooting, scoring player. But you got to improve there on the assist to turnover ratio. You can't turn the ball over as much as you create assists. Now, he played a number of higher or power conference type schools versus Memphis, he had 18 points, 9 rebounds. Versus Mizzou, he had 20 points, 4 rebounds. Versus Houston, he had a rough game, 6 points, 2 rebounds. Played Gonzaga, had 25 points, 10 rebounds, and then played Northwestern, had 23 points, 4 rebounds. So when he played upper tier competition, he usually was scoring on the higher side, and he could continue to show that he could be a power conference player. I would love to see him come to Minnesota and either start at the 2 or come off the bench and sub in for Mike Mitchell Jr. at the 2. Either way, whichever one works best for this Gophers team, but I think he could really spark and also help on that 3-point line, especially if Cam Christie does decide to stay in the NBA draft. So Ken Evans is a name to keep in mind right now. Final name, Bradley Eswiro. He's from St. Louis last year, 6'9" forward. Not sure if he has 1 or 2 years of eligibility left, but he had 12 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game. He does not shoot the 3 ball. He literally hasn't shot a 3 in 3 years of college basketball, so I wouldn't expect for that to happen. Now, this is also would be his 4th stop in 4 years. That is something that's maybe a little bit of a red flag. He was at LSU as a freshman, didn't play that much. I believe he played in 7 games. Georgetown, he was there as a sophomore, and then St. Louis, he was there as a junior. Now, the only year that he really had numbers that popped off was with St. Louis last year, and on top of the limited shooting range and the lack of success at 2 of the more power conference school opportunities he had, it's hard for me to imagine that he could carve out a big role in Minnesota, to be completely honest with you. Now, I would love to be wrong if he ends up coming here, but I just don't know if he's a good fit for this Gophers basketball team. Now, of these names, I would obviously be interested in Ken Evans, the SWAC player of the year. He could be a great 2 guard, but priority number 1 for me personally would be Seydou Traore due to the long-term eligibility. He was a freshman last year, so he's got at least 3 years of eligibility left. He has a size. He can play the wing position that you don't have much of, and he brings another element overall, a different type of play style. And on top of that, you'll have him longer than just this 1 year. So you have someone building that core of Asuma and Grove and Betts, and so you have someone to continue to build off of that. Now, Frank Mitchell also has 2 years of eligibility, so he could be around for 2 years, which would be greatly appreciated for this Gophers team. So if you add Mitchell and then a Traore on top of that, you have size, you have multiple positions coming back, and that would be a good core for the Gophers beyond next season. Now, there's still a lot of portal movement to go. It's not closing till the end of the month, so we're going to have you covered with portal talk here at Locked On Golden Gophers. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of that. Now, we got to talk even more portal. We're talking about women's basketball. They brought in a new name. Definitely exciting times, and if you look at the box score, you might be like, okay, why are we so excited? I'm going to tell you exactly why we're so excited coming up next. First, I want to tell you about the best ticketing app out there by far, bar none, in my humble opinion. And that is Gametime, because Gametime has everything from killer last minute deals on tickets, all in prices, view from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. And now they're also an authorized ticket marketplace for the MLB, which makes getting tickets even easier and fun and faster, and everything you need, you got it over at Gametime. The Gametime act actually goes down. The prices go down as it gets closer to the first pitch, so you're definitely going to want to give Gametime a try. Now, like I said, they have last minute deals up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, theater, comedy, you name it, they've got you covered. And on top of that, I love the seat views. I love being able to get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, especially for concerts. So you can get an idea of, am I going to be obstructed? Am I not going to be able to get the full experience? You don't have to worry about that with Gametime, because you get a seat view. And on top of that, they have the all-in pricing. You toggle that feature and it shows you your total upfront, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. But don't just take my word for it. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Again, terms apply, but create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Gophers fans, let's talk about Gophers women's basketball. Now, if you haven't heard, You need to. Taylor Woodson is officially back home in Minnesota. She played at Hopkins in high school, ended up going to Michigan last year as a freshman, hit the transfer portal, and is coming back home. Now, Minnesota beat out other Big Ten schools. They beat out Nebraska, who was in the Big Ten championship game and was in the NCAA tournament. That's a big beat. And on top of that, they beat out Wisconsin too. You love beating out your rival, but it was great to see Taylor Woodson want to come back home and be in the maroon and gold. And if you haven't heard of her, you should be excited. Now, yes, the box score from freshman year might not make you go, wow, look at that addition. But she was a true freshman who played in 32 games on a tournament team and played 10 minutes or less per game. So she was still getting her feet wet, but she was contributing where asked. Now, in the game versus Iowa, she had her best game against one of the best teams in the conference and scored 13 points, 4 or 5 shooting. Now, in high school, though, that's where you can see the heavy upside and potential that she has. She was ranked 59th in her recruiting class, a 4-star player. She was the 2023 class 4A all-state and all-conference player and averaged 18.7 points per game. She also won 2 state championships, has chemistry with Amaya Battle as they won some championships together, and she was a Miss Minnesota basketball finalist. Also, she's got 3 years of eligibility left, so she can help carry over this program when Amaya and Mara and Mal are all gone. She'll still have 1 year of eligibility left beyond that, so she can help this Gophers team transition and keep the winning going beyond just that class. So this puts the Gophers at 12 scholarship players on the roster next year for Gophers women's basketball, and you get 15 for for women's basketball. So you get 15 scholarship players. They have 12 officially on the roster for next year so far. You got all 5 starters back: Amaya Battle, Mara Braun, Grace Groholski, Mallory Heyer, and Sophie Hart. That's your 5 starters. You've got 2 transfers in Taylor Woodson and Annika Stewart. You've got 2 rotational players back in Nehemiah Holloway and Maggie Zanano. And then you got 3 freshmen, one of them being a redshirt in Kennedy Click, who got hurt at the beginning of the year. And then also McKenna Johnson and Tori McKinney, who are your 2024 class players. So like I said, that's 12 scholarship players. Plus you have your 1 walk-on in Bryn Senden. So you don't have to fill those other scholarship players if the fit isn't right. The only thing I would love to see Minnesota do is bring a scoring aficionado, someone who can take the pressure off of Amara Braun or off of Amaya Battle. Now, Woodson has the upside to be that, but we still have to see it at the collegiate level. So maybe she steps into that type of role. But in the meantime, you would love to get someone who has done it at an elite level, maybe even in a power conference, someone you can really lean on and depend on, even if they're a 6-man, or even if that pushes one of our starters to more of a 6-man role. Regardless, you would embrace that type of addition. Now, in the meantime, you'll notice that we had 3 Gophers freshmen from last year hit the portal. That's McKinley Dalen, Ajak Madall, and Ayanna Johnson. Now, I had somebody ask, is it concerning that 3 freshmen hit the portal? But my answer would be not really, given the context, because Minnesota had the youngest team in the Big Ten last year, meaning these players that didn't get time probably wouldn't have much time that they would have seen next year either. 2 of the 3 were also recruited by the previous staff and weren't really in mind for this system and how the staff wants to build things. So not only did they not have the playtime and opportunity, but they also might not be a system fit for Coach Don Plitzwhite's system. And with a rotation of only about 7 players last year and the starters getting gassed out and not really trusting or being able to rely on the skill set of some of these younger players, it makes sense that they want to get an opportunity elsewhere because they might not have been ready for the Big Ten type of basketball in Don's eyes. So the Gophers should be in a good position given the current layout. But also, if Sophie Hart is able to get that extra year of eligibility that the Gophers have applied for via waiver, that would really have it so you're only losing 2 players from next year's roster in Annika Stewart and Maggie Zanano. They'll be out of eligibility for sure, but if Sophie gets that extra year, you're only losing 2 players. Now, Minnesota already has a top 40 recruit in that 2025 class coming from Wisconsin as well. So year 1 with Coach Don Plitzwhite had some big highs to kick off the year, but it also had some brutal lows with the unlucky injury. In the end, they were able to retain key players, get postseason play and experience in the postseason, and get to the WNIT championship game. They got 20 years in year one and a whole lot of promise heading towards year two. You should be excited for your Gophers women's basketball team here in Minnesota because it is on the rise, and hopefully it's only getting better as we get healthier. It's going to be a fun ride. I'm excited for it. You should be too. And if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, I would encourage you to get them early before they get too high. So definitely check them out. Give them a follow. Follow the podcast here as well. We're going to keep you posted on everything happening in the transfer portal and the offseason here at Locked On Golden Gophers. I will see you tomorrow. I'm going to do a weekend show for sure. So I'll see you then. Row the boat. Sky Ma, go Gophers as always. And don't forget to hit subscribe.